welcome into Believe in Kentucky on the Believe Podcast Network alongside Cole Park for the Cat's Paws. My name is Vinny Hardy, coming to y'all with another episode. We actually got games to talk about. As you check out this episode via YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you consume your podcast, give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, 5 stars. We definitely would appreciate it. It helps the show grow. And like as I always say, we've had Louisville and Tennessee fans even leave 5 stars and a nice comment. So BBN, if our rival schools can jump in here and give us a little kind word, we know y'all can too. So we definitely would appreciate it. Cole, man, you got your first game in the box for the Cat's Paws, right? Now you've been up
Yes.
there before, but it's first time covering them for the Cat's Paws. So what
Yes.
was this past Saturday like?
Yeah, I'd been up in the Kroger press box quite a few times over the years for the Kentucky Colonel, but up there with the Cat's Paws, I mean, only thing that was really too different was the seat that I sat in. So, pretty typical. Pretty typical there. Knew everybody up there. Got to see some people I haven't seen quite a bit there. So it's pretty cool. A nice time. Happy to be back in the box with the Cat's Paws. Happy to be back in the box in general, and covering some Kentucky football. Excited for basketball as well. Just excited to keep doing this as my job.
The 50th anniversary of the Cat's Paws. I saw
Yeah.
Daryl Bird, the OG Oscar Combs, the founder of the publication, were on with Tom Leach the other day, man. Just look, Oscar was just ahead of his time, man. The innovation to just start a publication that covers a school sports team, and look what it has become, man. So congrats to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic story about it in our special section, the 50th anniversary. Great story by Daryl. He always does a fantastic job with those stories. So be sure to get your copy as well. You can subscribe. The stories on the website as well, and they also sell them at Joseph Beth here in Lexington. So
There you go. There's myriads of ways to get your hands on that. So good stuff, man. The It kind of played out like we thought. We we talked
yeah,
about it being close in the fourth quarter, and every time Kentucky got it to a two-score game, Toledo responded and promptly made it a one-score game. And we had Maggie Davis on from BBN tonight on last week. She said 28-14. I think you said 27-17. I said 27-16. We were all right there in that neighborhood. It ended up being 24-16. And 1-0 and a lot better team coming in Saturday.
yeah. I mean, certainly, and I think the way the game played out from the outside looking in, it is exactly what we kind of expected it to be. One that was pretty close late, one that was close to maybe you wanted it to be. But I think the way we got there wasn't necessarily what we were expecting. Kentucky's defense looked really, really good. They looked, apart from the couple of drives there, they looked very strong. And interestingly enough, talking to them today, most of the defensive players were not super happy with how they played. They said they felt like they gave up too many yards. There were too many missed reads, too many things that they need to tighten up. So that's great. That's what you want to hear from your defense. You want to, as a football fan, you want a defense who looks miles better than the offense on the field, and then says they're not very happy with it and they have a lot to work on. That's what you want out of a defense. But the offense, and not even really the whole offense, because the offensive line looked solid. The running backs looked great. Dante Dowdell with his 79-yard rush, longest of the week. It was really the passing game that we talked up so much. Those receivers, the 9 of them on the 2 deep, weren't really a factor. And certainly, there were some drops, there were some pass interferences, there were some missed throws, and there were just a few things that didn't quite fall Kentucky's way. But, we saw a lot of the tight ends as well, a lot of fun stuff there. But really just the quarterback play and the wide receiver play is the biggest concern there. And even that is maybe just a couple plays away from being something that's not a concern. Zach Calzada said it after practice yesterday when we got to speak with him. He said, I think there's a lot of good things we did. And he said, our mistakes, my mistakes, those are all faceable. Those are things that we can fix. Those are things we know what we did wrong, and we can, get ready for it. And you know what they say in football, teams see their biggest jump from week 1 to week 2. So we'll see if that's true. And it's going to need to be true as Kentucky gets ready to face Ole Miss.
Yeah, that's the That's the old adage for sure. We have some Ole Miss perspective here in a few minutes from Susan Willis from Talking with Ole Miss. That page with the good look in just a minute. Oh, so yeah, the week from week one to week two. The line, you think, last year, Southern Miss, first game of the season, they had a lot of sacks. That team was a lot worse than the Toledo team. Game one Saturday, they don't allow a sack against a better team. So the line is hopefully a better line, held up against a better team, and we just gotta see it continue trend that direction.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think a little bit there with the microphone, but yeah, I mean, definitely to see that keep trending in the right direction. The offensive line. I thought what was really interesting to me is it was a lot like the defense. I actually spoke with Coach Wolford yesterday after offensive practice, and we talked about the offensive line. No penalties. That was pretty noteworthy. The only penalty for Kentucky really in the first play of the game there, and that was a hold on Jamori Macklin, which Stoops said on his radio show. He's like, yeah, it was a hold, but it's a wide receiver trying to make a block. It happens. That's one that we don't want, but I'll take that one. If that's the penalty we get, I'll take it. A wide receiver trying to block. No penalties in the offensive line. No false starts. Felt like they were really sturdy a lot of that game. And when I asked Coach Wolford about that, he said, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's what we expect to happen. That's what we recruited these guys to do. When we brought them in there, we laid out very clearly what the expectations were. We laid out very clearly what they're going to be expected to do, who they're going to need to be. And, he said, we know the legacy here. We know about Schlarman's legacy. We know about the Big Blue Wall. And, what happened on Saturday, he said, that's our standard. That's what we need to be. But even then, he said there was, honestly more things that I think we need to improve upon than perhaps that I'm super, super happy with. He's like, I'm glad that things played out the way they did for the most part, but there's still a lot to improve upon. There's still a lot we need to do better. And that's, we still want to get better than we were last week. Our goal is to be better than we were last week. And last week is just, that's the baseline. That's what it should be. And you have kind of a lot of that energy in this program this year. And we'll see if that kind of translates into a much more successful season than last year. But I think that's been really notable talking to some of the players and coaches in practices and after games is that, mentality of those accomplishments or accolades that are celebrated. We in the media like to kind of celebrate those. It doesn't mean as much to those players. JQ Hardaway, for example, the defensive back, had that big interception on the second play of the game for Toledo. Obviously had that big play later in the game where, he was kind of out of position, gave up a pretty big gain that I think ended up being a Toledo first down. And Brad White said after the game, he said he came up to me and he wasn't talking about his interception. He was talking about the play he let up. He said that was my bad. I was out of position. I didn't play the way I should have there. I talked to JQ today and he kind of doubled down on that. He said, nobody's perfect, but I can strive to be. He said, I can strive to be perfect in everything I do. He said, that's on me. I'll take full accountability. I got lazy. I didn't play 4 quarters of football. He didn't say a single word celebrating that interception. And that was, something the fans were throwing all over the place. But to him, what mattered more was what he didn't do as opposed to what he did. And I think that is, as you're going into a game against Ole Miss across the board, that's the kind of mindset you want from this Kentucky team right now.
And going back to Wolford, I mean, you've been around him more than I have, but that dude is intense. He's on 10 all the time, seemingly. He seemed calmer in the media session with you, the other day than I've ever seen him. He was for him, that was kind of low key. That was kind of chill. He was, virtually relaxed from what I'm usually seeing him at, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he is an intense guy.
Yeah.
I was asking those questions, and he was talking to me in it, but I still had my foot ready if I needed to turn and run. You know what I mean? I was like, okay. No, I'm kidding. Very nice guy, but he is an intense guy. But that's kind of what you want out of an offensive line coach.
Oh, yeah.
You have the stereotype of what you want an offensive lineman to be. That's what you want that unit to be. You want them to be. You want the coach to be a pretty intense guy. You want the players to be those kind of players, and I think that they've got a really good group. I think that, it was something Wolford said to me as well. Josh Brown had said, in the summer, he was talking about the transfer portal and how, I think we've spoke about this in the show before. He was talking about the transfer portal and how some people say it means players don't care about the school as much. He's like, well, no, I disagree. I chose to be here. This is where I want to play my career. And, Wolford, I asked Wolford about that, and he said, I don't think there's anybody on this team that doesn't want to be here right now. He said, we told them about the Schlarman legacy. We told them about the expectations as soon as they signed, maybe even before they signed, before they even put pen to paper. We told them what this was going to be. They still chose to be here. I think everyone on our line, everyone on our team wants to be here. Everyone on our team and our line knows what they need to do, and they're going to move forward and do it the way they need to do it. And I thought that was noteworthy. And like you said, even for as intense of a guy as he is, and some of those quotes that I got there, that was pretty laid back for him. He did feel a lot more casual and willing to give, some really honest and pretty thoughtful answers to certain questions that I asked, even with some of the intensity thrown in there. So I think that you can kind of just tell off this team. We'll see again if it translates fully to results, but the culture within this team seems a lot better a lot earlier.
Sure. We'll switch it up a little bit and get some insights into the opponent. Ole Miss coming in here Saturday. We've got a gentleman that covers Ole Miss for the Locked on Ole Miss podcast. So you got knowledge galore. Stephen Willis, host of Locked on Ole Miss, joins us now. Stephen, man, appreciate you taking the time to hop on here, man. How you been?
Man, I am doing quite good, Vinny. I hope you guys are doing real well, man.
Can't complain, man. Can't complain. We got games to talk about now. No more projections and predictions and fall camp and all that kind of stuff. We're all up in it now.
Oh, speculating is what we do, though. You take away the speculation, what is there? Especially 8 months of our lives is just, hey, this player could do this. And then when the season happens, that player doesn't even see the field. And you're like, well, told you he was no good. And so, that's just the world we live in, man.
That's it. Well, man, tell our listeners a little bit about Stephen Willis. Were you born and raised in Mississippi? How did you become a fan? How did you become a host and cover them? And just give us a little stuff about you.
I've been an Ole Miss fan my whole life. I grew up in South Mississippi, going up to North Mississippi to Oxford 2 games. I actually went to college at Ole Miss as well. I worked for the Ole Miss football team as the video coordinator for a while. I spent some time in the national media with Yahoo Sports, did a little time at WSMV TV in Nashville, Tennessee. And now I just talk about Ole Miss every single day, and it's pretty awesome.
There you go, man. There you go. And that's why we got you on here now, because, you're full of knowledge and insight, and we definitely appreciate it. So did you guys basically reload this year? And how much different is this year's version of Ole Miss from last year's version that we saw in Oxford?
Well, it's still kind of an open question on that. But there are some changes that you noticed in the first game that you didn't necessarily notice a year ago. Austin Simmons kind of looks like more of Matt Corral in the passing game than Jackson Dart. A lot more short passing, a lot more dink and dunk as far as throwing the ball down the field that Jackson Dart just was in love with, as Kentucky fans will see in the game on Saturday. But they remember what Jackson Dart did last year, and that was Trey Harris had 11 catches, 175 yards, and Ole Miss threw for like 250 yards for the game. I mean, it was a throw the ball downfield, a duck and chuck philosophy. Trey Harris caught everything that day, and there was basically no other offense. That's not really the Austin Simmons way. Austin Simmons spreads the ball around. He uses the tight ends, uses the backs. The transfer wide receivers, there's just a ton of them. They're just deeper. This is the best wide receiver unit that Lane Kiffin has had at Ole Miss. Now, there isn't a Trey Harris. There's not that one elite wide receiver. There's like 9 really, really good wide receivers. And because of that, Ole Miss has a little bit more, creativity in their play calls, especially with having somebody as talented as Austin Simmons, who might be the most NFL-ready talent that Ole Miss has brought in that I can remember, since Eli Manning at least.
Cole, we could use a little wide receivers. We need some wide receivers to start doing that, right? Just
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think instead of playing, they should just both teams should just put out 9 wide receivers and see what happens.
oh, that would be awesome. Do a little 7-on-7, basically. That would be great. Hey, what was it like for you guys in the first game? Because it must have been weird not having a Barry and Brown or a Dane Key in the game, because this Kentucky offense would look a lot different if just add those two players.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what Dane could do a little bit at Nebraska, Barry on at LSU. We saw both those guys have their fair share of moments last week, so it was notable. And we talked a little bit about the wide receivers and what worked and what didn't work. Not that Hardly Gilmore can't do it. It's possible that some of those throws would have been wrong the same way, but some of those deep balls that were going to Hardly in the end zone, it was in the back of my mind, what if that was Barry on down there? What if that was a Barry on Brown down there ready to get that? What if some of those throws that ended up incomplete were a Dane Key that were right there? But, it'll be interesting to see how this wide receiver group responds in week 2 after a pretty poor showing in week 1, I think. We've talked about the 9 guys on that 2 deep, and really 6 to 8 of them that are expected to really, really play significant roles. So apart from just maybe 3 guys, we didn't really see a whole lot of them. So it'll be interesting to see how that group responds, and if, possibly some of those guys could even go on to be bigger than Dane and Barry on were in Lexington.
Well, I hope not, because Dane Key and Barry and Brown just cold sweats on Ole Miss fans. both times they played, Barry on just ripped Ole Miss
down the sideline. I was watching that one.
And if Berrien kind of got robbed of a touchdown, or that Clemson LSU game, it really gets a little ugly if that touchdown stands, which I really thought it should have. He kind of got Des Bryanted out of a touchdown.
Yeah.
That was absolutely nuts. But hey, Ole Miss still has to deal with Barry and Brown, but at least they don't have to deal with him this weekend.
Yeah. On the bright side, Kentucky does not have to deal with Barry and Brown this year. So.
Yeah, it was a lot of versions of Barry and Browns that had to be dealt with. So
yeah. My goodness. Just every play, even in the 2022 game, in that one, it was a Barry and Brown show, and I think he was a true freshman at that point. There was a kickoff return. He caught a tunnel screen, busted that out to go. He is just a really good player, and I really hope LSU doesn't know how to use him.
I can.
Well, week 1 showed some concern that they might know how to use them. So hopefully it only gets worse from here for all the rest of the SEC.
Exactly. Yeah. So Austin Simmons first start on the road. So that plays into Kentucky's hands. So how do you think Lane tries to get him comfortable? And you can't fast forward and give him experience. You have to. You don't have experience until you get it. So how does that affect him, you think?
Yeah, this is definitely a DJ Lagway type situation. It's better to get him second than get him 7th, because he's going to get better and better and better. He's had a little bit of a shaky start in all of his firsts. The first scrimmage, he threw a couple of interceptions. The first start last week against Georgia State, threw 2 first quarter interceptions. This will be his first road start. I hope that Lane takes that into account and dinks and dunks and really takes an opportunity to get him into the game, because Mark Stoops, we all know, he can put a quarterback on skates if you're not careful. And a young
Anthony Richardson. Oh, sorry.
Yes. So Lane needs to take advantage of that. The benefit that Ole Miss has this year that they didn't have last year is it looks like they have a running game, and they have a running back that is at least in the ballpark of Quinshawn. So, Kejuan Lacey had 3 touchdowns against Georgia State, including a 42-yard touchdown run for over 100 yards. He has elite contact balance. It's kind of like that Cam Scatabo from Arizona State. It takes a lot to get him on the ground.
Yeah.
But that is going to help Austin. That is going to get the Kentucky safeties' eyes in the backfield. That's going to open up stuff down the field if the quick game happens in the beginning of the game, and the return of the jet sweep and a Lane Kiffin offense against Georgia State. I liked what I saw in the first week. There was mistakes made. It in no way was perfect, but you put up nearly 700 yards and 63 points and didn't play particularly well. That whenever it actually clicks, this is going to be an explosive offense, because if you watch them play, this team is faster than they have been. The speed on this team is pretty breathtaking at times. They have tight ends and running backs. Everybody can run. It is ridiculous. They did a really good job in the transfer portal. The defense flies around and is fast. Now, they gave away a couple of too many explosive runs against Georgia State. And with Dante Dowdle and those guys at Kentucky, that is the path for the Wildcats in this game, to control the clock and get first downs. And you give up 3 offensive possessions in the first half, 2 8-minute drives or something like that. That is the path for Kentucky. But if Lane and Ole Miss can get the lead by 2 scores in this game, I don't care if it's 10-0. I don't care if it's 17-7. If you go, it's one of those, if you go up by 2 scores, it's going to be 4 scores. If it stays close, if you allow the rock fight to happen, you're going to look up just like Georgia did a year ago, and it's going to be 13-12 in the fourth quarter, and you have no idea what's going on. I think that is the 2 directions that this can go.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I talked to Brad White in the defense today, and that was something he said, talked about the tempo of Ole Miss. Obviously, that's something we always know, that high-tempo offense. But, he talked about everyone wants to talk about the passing game. Everyone wants to say, like, they passed for this much, 5th in passing yards last year. He's like, they ran for almost 300 yards last week. It's like they can do it both, and they can do the RPO, something we saw a little bit there, a lot of it there. And it can really kind of keep you guessing, keep you on your toes. And I think, one of the keys that you touched on there, one of the biggest things Kentucky can do is using those backs, but getting first downs. If you're Kentucky, you need to keep that defense off the field as much as you possibly can. You cannot have these short offensive drives like you did against Toledo, because that defense is going to get worn down. And Ole Miss is also a team that likes to go for it on 4th down, especially once they get to midfield there. So you're not talking about 3 downs and you're out of there. You're talking about 4 downs, and the way they have those options, the scrambles, they can do those long passes, those longer plays. It's going to be exhausting for this defense. So Kentucky's offense is really going to be the key to winning this game. And a big key to that is going to be how much they can keep the defense off the field, give them chances to rest. But for you, I kind of wanted to ask you, when you look at the quarterback, like we just talked about there, you look at the box score, it's going to say 2 interceptions no matter what, because they were 2 interceptions. But it really felt to me watching that, like only one of those was really his fault, I would say.
Absolutely.
So I was going to ask, for people that might not have been able to watch that game, could you kind of walk us through kind of what happened on both those plays, and the one that was his fault and also the one that maybe wasn't his fault?
On the first interception of the game, the one that wasn't his fault, it was because the right guard, Patrick Kutas, who hasn't played a football game in a year, essentially, he kind of got his technique off center a little bit on an RPO, got a little bit forward and make it hard to pass protect. If it's a throw, defensive lineman got around and kind of blindsided the quarterback. And it caused a little bit of a floater. Georgia State didn't score on the drive. I don't think Georgia State scored on either of the drives when he threw an interception, for what it's worth. The second one is the concerning one. And it's I would say the freshman one, but he's a sophomore, of course. But in the first scrimmage, he had an identical interception to where he did not notice the backside safety coming over the top and tried to hit a post pattern into the end zone and ended up getting the pass picked off. He did that against the scrimmage. He did that in the game against Georgia State. After that, though, everything got cleaned up. Everything looked like it's supposed to do. But early on, that was the mistake. That was the critical error. And it's like I said earlier in the show, you want to get Austin Simmons early. I feel bad for the Florida Gators and the South Carolina Gamecocks getting him at the end of October and the beginning of November, because you're going to get basically a quarterback that has a year's worth of experience at that point. He's still seeing stuff for the first time. Mark Stoops is going to show him things that he has never seen before. He's going to figure it out, but the experience and the growth is there. This game and the next 4 or 5 games, at least until, I don't know, until LSU at the end of September, you just need to find a way to win them. You would like to win them in blowouts. You would like to do that, but you hope his mistakes that he makes are not in critical moments that can cost you a game. If it's games like Georgia State where they didn't score at all after the interceptions, that's bonus. That's everything. That's good. But against Kentucky, against Arkansas, against Tulane, you need the mistakes from Austin Simmons, which there will be some, to be at a time that doesn't kill you. It all depends on the timing. Ole Miss, in my opinion, if they are 6-0 going to Athens, Georgia, we can start officially having the playoff discussion with Ole Miss, but you have to get to that 6-0 before you can earn the right to have that conversation.
So you're saying that Simmons and Lenoris, that could be quite a show when you get to that part of the season. If he progresses like you think he will.
Yes. I will say this, and I saw the same Lenoris Sellers this year that I saw last year. I did not see a jump. And he was good last year, don't get me wrong. But people were talking about everybody expecting Cam Newton walking through the door this year. And that wasn't happening. And the only reason I think that Lenoris gets the credit of what's going on is because Arch Manning looks so bad.
Ooh.
Yeah, and everybody's talking about that in Alabama. Alabama being ranked right now is an absolute joke. That was ridiculous. You take the elephant off the logo, you take the numbers off the helmets. No, if it's anybody else, if it's Arkansas coming in there and they do that, ranked 6th in the nation and lose to Florida State the way they did, Arkansas is not ranked. No, Alabama's ranked because they're Alabama.
Ooh.
I can't say I disagree with that. I mean, I think I follow the AP poll pretty closely and have for years. And I think anyone that does follow that poll knows that when it comes to the AP poll, you're not always looking at the top 25 best teams. You're looking at the top 25 best teams relative to how they were ranked last week, because certain voters just aren't going to concede that they were that wrong about certain teams, and brand bias is going to win out sometimes. So there's a lot of imperfections in that poll, but I agree. And I said that on a radio show earlier this week. I said, did Alabama look like one of the top 25 best teams in the country? Because I didn't think so. I sure didn't. And I feel like, that's kind of something Kentucky has kind of struggled with a lot. Obviously last year was quite poor, but even when they were winning a lot of games, we said that after that second 10-win season, they come into the season ranked in the preseason like number 22 or something like that for the first time in 40 years. A program like Kentucky has to fight a way more uphill battle to get that respect that's kind of just handed to some of these schools a lot easier.
Yeah, we're the same way at Ole Miss. Ole Miss has won 10 games, 3 out of the last 4 years. Ole Miss beat Georgia State 63-7. PFF, I know it's just a ranking, is that they dropped them out of the top 25. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, the reality is, in the age where these polls don't matter, because they literally do not matter other than having something to talk about, with the playoff coming on and the poll that actually matters, or the rankings that actually matters in November, you're seeing these people voting in the AP poll, and you see these people voting in the assistant SID poll, which I call the coaches poll. You have those people kind of establishing their own narratives. They're kind of furthering their own causes and using the poll as a vehicle to prove that, hey, the SEC is overranked, or hey, the Big Ten is underranked. And they want the poll to represent that as opposed to anything of a real number when the polls actually mattered and decided national championships.
Yeah, it's no real foolproof way to eliminate all of that. It's going to creep in no matter if you zig on it this way, well, they'll zag that way to still accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, like you said.
Yeah, but the great thing is whenever they do what they ultimately do, that means I get one show when that comes out that says disrespect. and I get to spend 9 to 10 minutes talking about how they're idiots. And whenever that happens, my numbers go off the charts. So, yes, I'm okay with the polls, but they are, yes, absolutely meaningless. I call it the non-ball knowers poll. That's the AP poll, the non-ball knowers poll. And then you have the assistant SID poll, which is the coaches poll.
And you said, at the Stephen Willis on Twitter, ball knower is in the profile. He does.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we know what side you're on, man, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm always on the side of knowing ball. That's what it's about.
We mentioned Cole. You mentioned that Kentucky has to defend for all 4 downs, and we'll have to do that a lot Saturday. Stephen, you're a huge fan of that 4-down philosophy, 4 downs all the time that Lane Kiffin employs, right?
I close every show that I do with analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. That is how I close every episode. I hate going for it from 4th down. Ole Miss is good enough at this point. The talent is good enough where you need to end every possession with a kick. If you play that game and don't play the slot machine, especially on the road, you're going to win so many more games than you're going to lose. But if you play the slot machine like they did against Kentucky last year, like they did against LSU last year, and like they did against Florida last year, momentum, if you don't respect it, will come back to bite you. And that is the lesson I think they should have taken from last season, if you ask me.
Hal Mummy is proud. I saw that as a teenager. You were around for that air raid, going for it on your own 36 or whatever, and the defense is like, dude, hey, and those are some lean years, for Kentucky football was from a depth standpoint back then. So,
if you have a 6-5 team or a 7-4 team or something like that, yes, I can see it. Play the slot machine then because it's risk reward. If you have a 12-0 roster, act like you have a 12-0 roster. Don't act like you have a 7-5 roster. That is my problem. That's where I'm coming from.
Where are you at on analytics, Cole?
I think going for it on 4th down is more entertaining football most of the time. If you're
it's entertaining.
Yeah, but I think it depends on the situation. I do think there's a time to go for it. I do think there's certainly times that teams go for it and should not. But most of the time in which I think a team should go for it, it's a situation where if you truly are a 12-0 kind of team, you're hopefully not going to find yourself in it. I think, a lot of times you should go for it on 4th down is when you're a bit desperate and you kind of need to make something happen there. But it's kind of it leans into something a little bit adjacent that Mark Stoops talked about on his show. He was talking about a couple times they punted against Toledo, and they've been talking about their kicker's range all this time. And someone asked him, he's like, if you're saying he can hit from 64 yards out, why are you not kicking it? He's like, because that would have been stupid.
Yeah.
He's like, when I say his range is 64, that's like game on the line, no more plays. We try it from there. But he's like, I'm not having his first kick be 50 yards. That's stupid. Yeah. And, I think that there's a lot of situations like that in the 4th down scenario, especially if you got a quarterback like Austin Simmons. I'm not having his first 4th down play be in our own territory that could end up costing us a touchdown. And then, his confidence is shot. And that's something you heard if you watch the SEC documentary with DJ Lagway. They talk about some of those things. It's really easy to break a guy down with confidence. And, you want to put these guys in positions to succeed. And, like you said, it's a slot machine. If you get the 4th down, it's a great boost. It makes you feel great. But most of the time, 4th downs don't get converted. That's why it's special when they do. And most of the time when you fail on that, you're just giving them better field position. And you're kind of telling your defense, we don't trust you as much to go make a play.
Yeah, and you're also juicing up the crowd if you're doing on the road. They might not have belief before the 4th down. After the 4th down stop, they have belief. Yeah. And whenever you're playing in the Swamp or in Tiger Stadium, it can make a lot when the crowd starts to believe.
And Stephen, you and I are a little bit older. It just is what it is. But Cole, you are very knowledgeable and have read and know stuff from back before your time. Stephen, man, when we were coming up, anytime a team went for it on 4th down, in the crowd, people watching at home, we were like, ooh, oh, because you just didn't see it. You're playing Tecmo Bowl, you punt, But now it's just so common. It's hey, fourth down. Hey, it's not even like eye opening anymore because everybody does it. But back years ago, that thing it was like, oh my god, oh the
Yeah,
crowd would gasp.
we're from the era when Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker was playing, and it was 10-6 games.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that era, is absolutely nuts. And the respect that you have for the game and for momentum and how you see what goes on, you try to boost that as much as you can. And making a fourth down, it sounds great. It sounds wonderful. But if it doesn't work, all of a sudden you've given a short field, you've given momentum, you've given all of that stuff. When if you just punt the ball, you might go out of bounds at the 2-yard line to where the other team has 98 yards to go and have to punt the ball back. You end up with a fresh set of downs and better field position. I mean, field position is respected by us old heads. It's not so much by the younger generation that, does all the Madden stuff and the NCAA stuff and all that. But field position, even in the era of spread offenses and everything else, it cannot, like I said, if you go against it, if you ignore it, it will come back to bite you in a serious way. And I am living proof of that because you saw what happened to Ole Miss last year.
I would also add that, you talked about it the same with the interceptions, not converting a fourth down there. It doesn't necessarily always give the other team momentum they can capitalize on. Often it does, but the other team might not always capitalize on, but 100% of the time, not getting a fourth down just nukes any momentum you have.
Yes.
It completely crushes your offense and makes you kind of have to start back at square one. And, I said it that most of the time I would ever advocate for going for it on fourth downs when you're desperate, and it's either going to make or break the game if you get it or not. Because if you don't get it, you're starting back at square one. You still need the same points you needed before, and maybe they get a score off of it. And it really is very, very high risk for a small chance at a okay reward most of the time.
Yes, and for Lane Kiffin and Austin Simmons and whoever's in charge, I think the most important key in the game Saturday for Ole Miss is no turnovers. That means no interceptions, no fumbles, and no turnover on downs. Do not give Kentucky belief. And every possession with a kick, it doesn't matter if you make a field goal or miss it. You don't get momentum bumps for missed field goals. Just make Kentucky work for everything they have to do. Don't give them anything. Do not help them out. I think it was at Sun Tzu, when your enemy is defeating itself, do not help them. You take that philosophy into Kentucky and you'll probably be all right.
Yeah, I mean, on that same note, we saw that last week for Kentucky. Toledo went for it on fourth down, I think 4 times, and only got it once. And one of the times they went for it on fourth down was in the Kentucky red zone. You want a touchdown more than a field goal. I understand that, but you end up coming away with nothing. And, granted, Kentucky ended up giving up a safety on the very first play of the next offensive drive. Terrible play by Zach Calzada. He's admitted that. But regardless, that should have come back to bite them more than it ultimately did. Going for it on fourth down in the Kentucky red zone, down 7-0. What are we doing? Kick a field goal.
And like I said, Ole Miss and Kentucky are in different places as a program at right now. But the main thing for Ole Miss is learn how to play. Ooh. Oh, nice. Very good. Learn how to play as the favorite. And sometimes taking a field goal and going down 7-3, you're going to have opportunities to score more than that. Take the points. You're eventually going to be all right.
Just going to maybe an individual matchup standpoint, if Xavier Harris loops or stunts at 6'8", 330, he could run into Shiaj Pete at 6'8", 322. Clearly two of the biggest dudes in the country. They might cross paths a little bit Saturday.
Yeah, Xavier Harris he had an all SEC worthy camp, and he had an interception and a sack in the first game against Georgia State. We call him the dancing bear because he's so big, but he's so agile. He's unbelievable, and he's really good in the field goal game as far as blocking kicks, as you would expect. I think he's blocked like 6 of them in his time at Ole Miss. Xavier Harris is going to be a problem, and he's a player that guarantees a double team every single snap. Because if you do not double team him, he was going to wreck your game. He's a game wrecker. The question becomes for Ole Miss, William Eccles, who is a sophomore, or Jam Brown, who is a sophomore. Can they demand a double team as well? If both of those players can demand double teams on every single play, that allows the linebackers to run free. They're supremely gifted ends. All of a sudden, they can get loose a little bit, but they need a little bit of help on the inside of that defense. Now, Jam Brown and William Eccles, they were both like midseason freshman All-Americans in last season in different parts of the year. So they're good players, but can they demand a double team, or is Kentucky's right guard or left guard or whoever that is he good enough to block him one-on-one so they can double team Santarin Perkins or Cam Franklin or those guys on the defensive line? That's a fun matchup for me, and I want to see what Kentucky's defensive line does against the Ole Miss offensive line and how that looks. Doesn't look like last year when Ole Miss just couldn't do anything because they were getting everything blown up by the defensive line, or can Ole Miss have a little bit more success? And if that happens, Austin Simmons is going to have a little bit more time. They're going to get some creases to run the football. The offense is going to get to stay on the field, which means it's not going to look like the Tennessee game from like a couple of years ago when Kentucky had 46 minutes of time of possession or something like that. I do think that playing as the favorite and establishing the run and doing a lot of the simple non-Lane Kiffin type stuff is going to be important in this game.
I do believe the right side of the Kentucky line is Jalen Farmer and Alex Wolfschlager, if I recall correctly. I wrote about them a little bit because Dante Dowdell's 79-yard rush went right between the middle of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Jeff Picoro, who we've had on here, he's the
that was a
color
horrible
analyst.
By the way, I saw that touchdown. That was a there was nobody there.
Yeah.
I mean, he strolled to the end zone.
Yeah. He said Wolfschlager and Pete look like Bowie and Turpin out there because they're both 6'8", 6'9", that each of your tackle spots. So yeah, a lot bigger, and that was a point of emphasis to fix that offensive line, because after Southern Miss last year, from South Carolina on, it was just a glaring issue, and it sabotaged the season. They couldn't get anything done, and that was basically the root cause of a lot of their problems that stemmed from that last year.
I am looking forward to this game because Ole Miss was so vanilla against Georgia State. I want to see the actual defense play defense, because it was base defense. Maybe there might be a tackle in stunt or something like that, but it was unbelievably base. But hey, let's do cover one, play some man coverage. Now the good news is that's pretty awesome is Georgia State had one NFL player that is absolutely going to play on Sunday, and that's a wide receiver named Jeff Hurst. And he's really good. He's somebody that was told before the game that it was going to require a double team the whole 9 yards. Antonio Kite, who was a transfer that came in, only gave up one catch for 8 yards to Jeff Hurst in that game. And nobody's talking about that because Georgia State, their passing game, they just got away from it because the game got out of hand and they just wanted to get out of there without getting completely beat down, which still it ended up happening. But Antonio Kite on Jeff Hurst, that's an interesting thing. And I'm curious, the wide receiver, who is the number one wide receiver on Kentucky's team? It would have been Dane Key. If we remember last year's game, it was a whole lot of slant passes and contested passes over the middle from Brock Vandegrift to Dane Key to keep drives alive. That was a key part of Kentucky's offense. Who is that player this year?
I guess it's probably going to be Jamori or Kendrick.
I guess. And if they want it, it's there for the taking. Maybe somebody separates. We've been talking about that all summer, Cole. Been waiting. We got or all over the depth chart at wide receiver. And you would think, you said it a couple weeks ago, Cole, and I've been thinking it, Macklin's second year, it ought to be him. It should have been clearly him in fall camp, you would think, but it's still up for grabs, and the whole room is just kind of even.
I mean, it's interesting. You would have thought it would be Jamori returning to Kentucky, and if it wasn't him, then you'd be like, oh, okay, so it's Kendrick Law out of Alabama, right? That's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll see. We'll see. We've still the jury's still out on that one. So
Exactly. Yeah. Your guess is almost as good as ours, Stephen.
Yeah, the last time I saw Zach Calzada play football, it was him throwing a pick six to AJ Finley in like 2021 for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So he could be a completely different player from them, but that's where my memory of Zach Calzada is.
Yeah, I understand. Grizzled veteran, many games and a long journey, and yeah,
it's crazy. That was 2 free safeties ago for Ole Miss, and Zach Calzada was still playing football.
Exactly. Man, what can everybody look forward to and expect to hear when they tune in to Locked On Ole Miss? What you got coming down the pipe?
Well, I like to say that we're the most viewed Ole Miss podcast out there, and we are the most fun Ole Miss podcast. The whole idea of the channel is to have a good time following Ole Miss sports. So we try to have fun on the channel. And if you tune in to a live stream, we try to interact with the comments. I want all the Kentucky fans to show up just like they did a year ago. I want that same energy, win or lose this year. That was awesome. And follow us on socials, follow us on the shorts. We like to have a good time. We are on the Locked On Ole Miss YouTube page. We are on wherever you get your podcast. Leave a 5-star review, comment, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We will have a good time. And there's lots of people from other conference teams on there as subscribers because honestly, we do like to have fun and we don't like to troll or talk noise. I am opinionated, but we don't troll.
There's a difference, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, good stuff, man. And appreciate you taking time to hop on here and give some insights. And let's get 3 quick predictions on how we think this game will play out. And there's, guess first, visiting team first. Steven, your thoughts?
I think it is going to be a little bit of a rock fight because Mark Stoops is very good at creating a rock fight. That's what he's done in this Ole Miss series over the last 3 games has been decided by 7 total points. I think it's going to be a little bit more than 3 points than it was over the last 2 meetings. I think Ole Miss is going to win the game 24-10. I think it's going to be a situation that Ole Miss jumps out to a 14-0 lead or something like that, and it just kind of becomes an arm length holding out, and Kentucky doesn't quite have the offense to come back.
Cole Park, what say you?
35-27 Ole Miss.
Hey, that's
if that happens, we're going to talk to Pete Golding after this.
I think Kentucky's got a lot to prove offensively. They're going to come out looking ready to go. And, these games always seem to be pretty close when these 2 teams play. Mm-hmm. So generally lower scoring at 2. So I'm kind of setting myself up for failure here. I believe too much in Ole Miss's offense, and I got to get Kentucky within 10 of that. So my apologies to Coach Golding for the prediction. I'm trying to get to a certain point here, and I think Ole Miss is going to do well offensively, but I want to keep the game within 10 because it always seems to. So I'm just going to say 35-27.
Okay.
I'm on record because I was on Locked On Ole Miss earlier today, and season long 12-game season. I'm still not optimistic about Kentucky. I hope I'm wrong. Schedule is brutal. Maybe they have improved, but I still don't know. I mean, I'm kind of still in that 5-7 range, but somehow, some way, I think Ole Miss is 1-5 just because of the way they match up. It's the styles make fights. The rock fight versus the explosive. Last year was 20-17. In Oxford, the time before that, it was 22-19, and Dane Key was kind of robbed of a go-ahead touchdown because of an illegal procedure. And never mind. I'm getting
anyway, but you got that back in 2024 whenever the miracle 4th down catch and the fumble into the end zone happened. That's all a wash.
I'm gonna say
the fumble into Josh Caddis's hands is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in a
Yeah, you can't really claim bad luck anymore after that.
We were due to finally win. I wish we'd have just punched it in so it wouldn't be so fluky from the Ole Miss perspective. But thank goodness Caddis was there to retrieve it. I'm saying 23. 17 is Simmons' first start on the road. Kentucky finds a way to get a pick six or a scoop and score from a turnover standpoint. We get 3 field goals, and then we muster up 1 offensive touchdown. There's our path to 23 points, and it'll be the same type of game as it was last year, 23-20. Kentucky finds a way to – you got it.
I'm gonna tell you the one win for Kentucky this year. I don't think it's going to be Ole Miss. I think Texas better look out. I think Texas better look out. They're coming up to Commonwealth. Arch Manning has accuracy problems. That is the young quarterback that Mark Stoops puts on skates this year.
And his arm strength, it looked. I mean, he looked like Phillip Rivers out there throwing.
If they can stop the run, all of a sudden you have your rock fight. Because Texas's defense is going to do what they do. Kentucky's defense does what they do. It's 10-9 in the fourth quarter. You have your rock fight in that game.
It's possible. So you don't see him jumping. You see Arch just stand on this plane, or you see him?
Arch is going to get a little bit better, but until he gets mechanically sound, he's going to have accuracy problems.
Yeah.
And the more he has accuracy problems, once the competition goes up consistently in the SEC. Confidence is going to go down. And listen, I'm an Ole Miss person. When you say the name Manning, that means something. So don't think that I'm hating on the kid, but just the law of averages says that the next college quarterback for the Mannings is not going to be an NFL Hall of Famer. I mean, it had to just be a good quarterback, and I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I just don't think he's going to be a gold jacket quarterback.
Hey, I mean, I'm a Patriots fan, so some of those Manning Hall of Fame resumes are a bit of a sore subject to me, but I understand.
Yeah. If he doesn't pick up his accuracy, get into SEC season, it's going to be a long year for Texas. It's going to be a 7-win type year for Texas.
And he got to put some zip on the ball. I was surprised at how
you can't miss crossers.
He was throwing change-ups.
Yeah.
At Ohio State.
He's sitting here trying to be Patrick Mahomes and overthrowing third down crossers for an easy first down to set up what would be, a winning drive going through there. You make the throw. When you see a Manning this mechanically unsound, it bothers you because you've seen them be so sound for so long.
I think my biggest concern as far as Arch Manning is just, coaches and players, we've all done this. We know the game. They're going to say what they're going to say, but watching that game, watching the way some of those players respond, does that team even trust him anymore? Like, what can he really do to some of those receivers just aren't going to give him the benefit of the doubt to get them the ball. And it doesn't necessarily matter if he makes 1 or 2 good plays. That some of that trust has already been lost, and that's kind of my biggest worry for Arch going forward at Texas.
I think a bigger worry than that is the fact that I don't think Sark trusts him.
Yeah, definitely.
And everybody said there was no creative play calling. Yeah, he didn't trust his quarterback. You're not going to get overly creative. I think all Texas fans owe Quinn Ewers an apology right now. At this moment, they do.
Steve Spurrier said he couldn't even beat out a 7th-round pick. So, speaking of you being a Pats fan, before you wrap up, Cole, your guy Hoodie down there in Chapel Hill, does that pain you to see him get his behind whooped like that, or do you not care since it's not your Patriots?
Does it pain me? No, it doesn't. I was out here making jokes, having a grand old time watching Bill Belichick get whooped in Chapel Hill. I was having a grand old time anytime Tom Brady had a poor performance with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm a Patriots fan. They're not with the Patriots anymore. Thank you for all you did. Appreciate the dynasty. Chapel Bill has been a bit of a circus so far with everything going on. I even had a tweet that I think I put out. I said, personally, I'm shocked that the team that's been in the headlines for everything other than football all offseason is getting rocked by a team that's been pretty quiet and is steady underrated right now. Surely nobody could have seen that coming.
Yeah. Right.
No, I was having a grand old time watching that. No disrespect to Coach Belichick. He's one of the greatest to ever do it at the NFL level. And, for the North Carolina's sake, even though, a bit of a rival at Kentucky, not necessarily on the gridiron, hope it's able to get it turned around. That's a tough scene there, losing to TCU the way they did. But as a Patriots fan, it was no nothing wrong with me watching that. I had a good time.
And just as an aside, I was talking about this the other day. Got to give credit to North Carolina because I think when you think most famous football and basketball alum, I mean Michael Jordan and Lawrence Taylor. That's about as strong a duo as you can get, and they were Herschel and Dominique Wilkins at Georgia is strong, but if you go through the big schools and do that, I mean it's North Carolina's going to rank right up there with anybody with those two dudes, and they were both in the suite enjoying the first 5.5 minutes of that game, and then
First drive of that game.
Oh, they had the best tailgating flag of the day, and that was the Air Jordan with an O at the end, her name, and it showed like a silhouette of her like doing some kind of a dance move, and that was pretty good.
Yeah, and then that yoga stuff they did too, the yoga logo for him and her on the beach. So,
Yeah,
I personally love the massive blowout loss, and then Bill Belichick coming out to media with a giant balloon arch behind the podium.
oh, that was fantastic. Fantastic.
we thought we were going to win, so we didn't have time to take it down. So
What my favorite part in that game was the coaches on the sideline yelling at a player to get up and run after he hit the ground because they didn't realize at that moment he was down.
Yo, college game, baby, college game.
Yeah.
Nothing like it.
Steven, man, appreciate you so much for hopping on here.
Hey,
Everybody
man,
know,
anytime.
Locked on Ole Miss. Do your thing there every day, having fun. We had fun on here with you, so appreciate you. Cole, man, keep doing good stuff at the Cat's Paws. Everybody get the 50th anniversary, get the yearbook, basketball yearbook is coming, and all the other good stuff. You wrote a piece about the struggling passing game. Everybody go and check that out as well.
Chris Beard rules. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, oh, wow. We have to have you back on for basketball
Travis
season
Perry.
now.
We'll see, Travis Perry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, he came on my show the other day. Really good interview. Very good interview. I got the story
nice
of him
guy.
being, the 1A school that won the state championship, the Hoosiers story and all that. Yeah.
Hey, listen. Now, see, now you're touching my nerves. He's from Lyon County in Western Kentucky. I was born and raised in Harlan County. They beat us in the state title game. That 1A team of his beat ours. So that now you stabbing me in the heart on the way out.
Harlan County Trent Noah.
Yes, but anyway, you didn't know, but Travis is a good dude, and we'll see him when you guys come to Rupp Arena. But they beat us for the state championship there in Rupp Arena. So but I just had to tip my cap. They outplayed us.
Now that you mentioned that, real quick, the Cat's Paws Lyon County edition, looking at Travis Perry and all that. So
Lyon County Lions.
There you go. At that.
Lyon County State.
But it was pretty good. Ole Miss is going to be pretty good this year in basketball, by the way.
Yeah,
I mean, shocker. Yeah, they're going to be pretty good.
We owe y'all too after last year down in Oxford. It's for real. So, yeah.
I actually remember covering that when I was still a student journalist at the time, and I was doing my buzzer gamer, and that one was so far out of reach by the halftime that I just started making like Civil War references in the buzzer gamer. I was out here just like making references and having a fun time with the story because it was just so far gone. That was a horrible.
Yeah, that
game.
was the first half. They just could not miss a shot, especially a 3-point shot. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and Chris Beard likes to stoops it up and play defense and rock fight it, and Mark Pope likes to lane Kiffin 33s, play fast and all that, and Chris Beard, impose his will on Kentucky, and
I'm pretty excited because Chris Beard somehow, I don't know how it happened, but got the MVP of the Eurobasket under 19 to come on over, Ilias Camerdine.
Oh,
and he's a 6'7" 2 guard. So should be pretty interesting to see. I can't believe we're talking, but yes, I can. I'm on a Kentucky show. But it should be pretty interesting. And this is going to be the first year that I'm covering every game with like a reaction show. That's how basketball is treated normally at Ole Miss. But we're pretty fired up about Chris Beard.
Hey, good stuff. We'll stop it right there. Enjoyed it. Everybody, check out this episode of Believe in Kentucky, wherever you get your podcasts. It's on the podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen, it's there. It's on our YouTube page. Got the TikTok clips coming out as well. Got the link tree on our Twitter page. Follow, subscribe, like, give us 5 stars, leave a comment, and all that good stuff. For Stephen Willis and Cole Park, my name is Vinny Hardy. It's been another episode of Believe in Kentucky. Go Cats, and we'll holler at everybody next time.